Welcome back. Now, as we've told you before, we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic and a huge dilemma in Egypt, traffic. And before the show even, we were discussing whether it was pure psychology or it's something to do with laws and how to structure traffic in Egypt. And with us, who better to talk about this issue than Mr. Ahmed Durrami, who is energy of environmental consultant at Sidari and co-founder of Cairo Cyclers Club, as well as Green Arm. And also we have with us Dr. Khaled Abbas, who's an international expert in transport planning and traffic engineering. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
And before we delve deeper into the subject, we had a conference yesterday discussing traffic issue. So we're going to take a quick look at that report and be right back to discuss the issue more.
Cairo Climate Talks 22nd discussion was held this time, taking two major issues that face Cairo as a mega city, and they are urban development and transportation, hence solving the pollution problems facing Cairo and the commuting problems that face the city's residents.
Transport is a big issue. It affects everybody who live in Cairo. Whether you're rich or you're poor, somehow you're suffering from traffic problems. And it's a problem not only for the economy, it costs a lot of money to the country. The country is losing a lot of GDP for this, but it's also an environmental issue. So it's about pollution, and it's a health issue, people getting sick because of what's coming out of the cars, all the bad emissions, and it's an issue for climate change also. So if we don't manage to have a more sustainable, cleaner and better functioning traffic system in Cairo, we will not solve many problems of this country. So that's why we choose it. It is a huge issue, but also it's an issue that's affecting people. So everybody has something to say about traffic, whoever you ask.
When taking solutions into consideration, there are various means to solve the transportation issues facing the streets of Cairo, including the 200,000 new cars that are introduced to the already congested streets every year. Developing public transportation is one of the major solutions.
We see here in Cairo problems in the transportation sector, which is comparable with many other mega cities in the world, where we do mostly our research in mega cities and transportation systems in the world. And you see here a very strong car orientation in Cairo, and that is a problem because, of course, cars is driven by fossil energy, and it emitted a lot of GHG emission, CO2 and so on, and as well some local emissions, and that is a big problem. And of course you have accidents, you cover lots of space, very expensive space in a core city, and you have to reduce the car traffic like in all the other megacities as well. And you can do it if you improve the public transport as an alternative and do some restriction for car traffic. But at first you have to improve the alternatives, and then you can do some restriction for car traffic. And on the long run, you have to change the settlement structure in the way that you create neighborhoods with a livable area, with livable areas and short distances, so that you concentrate all the attractives or all the goals or target you need for the day, for the daily consume in the neighborhood. That you have short distances to the shopping areas, to leisure areas and so on.
Urban planning is a major issue facing the streets of Cairo. The distance that residents have to take to reach their workplace in many cases makes them commute all over Cairo to get there, therefore causing the congestion that we face every day in the streets of Cairo.
You need a combination of smart and maybe rather light technology, which helps to direct traffic flows better. With some infrastructure measures. In Germany, what we did is to make city centers less attractive to individual traffic, narrowing the lanes, reducing parking space and encouraging people to use public transport. While in the 70s we have demolished tram lines, now new tram lines are being constructed again, and city people are also encouraged very much to use the bicycle.
As my colleague said,
Cairo Climate Talks 22nd discussion discussing urban planning and the transportation issue in Cairo, turning our metropolitan city that has transformed through the years due to the immense numbers of cars on our streets into a huge parking lot, aiming out to solve this issue through today's discussion. Noor Hussein for Nile TV International.
Be the first to know. The news live at the site of the event. Information on events as they are happening. If it's breaking news, it's Nile TV.
Welcome back. So we were talking about this. I believe this is one of the main challenges that we can talk about when it comes to traffic, and all of us are suffering from this. So let me first of all start with Dr. Khaled Abbas, and let me ask you about it. I want to understand, first of all, to diagnose the whole issue. I don't want to move on to the solutions. I want to understand why. Is it because I myself, I am not convinced that it has to do with the number of the vehicles. It has to do with our behavior, the way we are driving, violating rules and breaking rules, all of this. So from your own point of view, you can tell us more about it.
Okay. The traffic is, we need traffic to reach mobility and accessibility. Each one of us does not need traffic for the sake of traffic. He needs traffic to reach his work. He needs traffic to reach his education premises, or whatever he want to do. So traffic in itself, or doing a trip in itself, is not the purpose, not the objective. The objective is coming after that. Now, in order to do that, there is an interactive between several components. The roads, the infrastructure, the vehicles, and their condition and their maintenance, and the users. And when I say the users, I'm saying that there are plenty of users in the traffic system. There is the driver, there is the passenger, there is the pedestrians, and there is the traffic police who's actually enforcing the whole process. Now, the interaction of all of these three components together, or these four components together, if it's correctly managed, this interaction, in a positive manner, then you have a positive traffic system. If it is managed in a negative manner, then you have a negative traffic system. And behind all of this, there are several aspects. So if we talk about behavior, yes, you are right, behavior, but who gave the license to drivers who does not behave decently in driving? Okay? Who's the one responsible for that? It's not the responsibility of the driver. The driver is not responsible because he was granted a license and he cannot drive in a decent way.
He was decent during the test.
But was the test rigid enough? Was the test, compared to the international standard, is a correct test?
So you're saying that everyone should play the role they were given?
Exactly right, exactly right. The engineers who designed the road, did they do traffic signals in a proper way? Do we have good traffic signing? Do we have good channelization and markings on the roads? The vehicle inspection engineers, let's be frank about it. You know, there are many vehicles who go to the vehicle inspection and they are in very bad condition, yet they pass and they are on the street with lots of emissions, black emissions and white emissions that pollute the air. And also we need to remind the audience here that traffic problems are numerous. It's not only traffic congestion that we are suffering, and that there are plenty of people who have died in Egypt, more than the people who died in the wars of Egypt because of traffic accidents on the streets. In Cairo, it's a killing phenomenon here, traffic accidents. Thirdly is the environmental pollution. For our next generation, and Egypt is one of the countries who signed the Kyoto Protocol. The Kyoto Protocol says that we have to take care of the environment. Are we taking care of the environment? All of this emission that is happening, all this pollution that is happening, energy consumption, and now we have a big problem of energy. And one of the main consumers of energy is traffic. Is traffic, and me and you going in traffic and using the petrol and using the diesel, which could be used for electricity and used for industrial purposes, not to cut the electricity. If we consume our energy in a correct manner. Not every one of us has to drive a car in order to come to his work. Why don't we carpool together? Why don't we have car sharing? Why don't we ride public transport? I don't want to jump to the solutions now, but I tried here to give you that it's components, it's a system approach, and because it's a system approach and we have lots of nitty-gritties in each one of these components, when we have to tackle the solution, we have to tackle it in a systematic way. It's not a piecemeal. Piecemeal will never solve the traffic problem in Egypt.
Mr. Ahmed, Dr. Khaled stated something very important, where roles to play, if everyone were to play their roles. He also said there's a background to it. They're devil in the details, so to speak. For example, you being society. How important is it to have this sense of awareness that my car is emitting carbon monoxide and this is poison? Is there that sense of awareness, do you feel?
I think the awareness is growing very quickly because the problems are literally reaching our doorstep in terms of litter and in terms of air pollution and everything. Not just our doorstep, but even indoors. I mean, if any of you wants to change their air conditioning filter every week,
Yes.
just look at how the water looks like when you clean this filter. So this is what we would otherwise breathe if we didn't have the AC or if you're just opening the window. So this is very important to be aware of this. So the awareness is definitely there. But also we have to remember that Egypt is not only Cairo. There are other governorates and other very beautiful governorates in Egypt. They're doing very well. The pollution is better, people walk more and cycle more, and generally in Egypt a lot of trips are being made by foot, more than many other European
It has to do with the number of population as well.
The number of
Yes.
population and also the rate of motorization, how many people own cars. So the rate of car ownership in Egypt is quite low actually. It's only 15% in Cairo and maybe 10 or 11% if you look at the entire of Egypt. But actually the car ownership is low, even though we have something like 200,000 new cars every year hitting the roads. And we recently made this interesting statistic to see how much space we lose in our urban environment every week due to the new cars that are coming in.
Every
and nothing
week?
is per week. How much space we're losing,
Oh,
and
God.
it was 16 soccer fields worth of space being lost in Greater Cairo every week.
Exactly. Why don't we have soccer fields instead, you know?
Exactly, or other services, or many other services. So in terms of awareness, definitely the awareness is there, and things are changing very quickly. Recently, with the empowerment of social media, lots of youth initiatives have been sprouting
Like
everywhere
Cairo
in Egypt.
Runners and your cycling group, I guess?
Exactly. Since maybe 2005, 2006, many groups started, and they're catching on, and they're spinning off in other governorates as
I have
well.
to be frank with you, though it's so commendable when you're alone and you're going down to walk to work. For example, sometimes I walk to work and it's quite difficult. There are no pavements. For example, Dr. Khaled, you stated using public transportation.
Yeah.
It's quite difficult sometimes.
Of course, it's
Not
quite-
sometimes, all of the time.
Okay, Nashwa is more pessimistic than I am.
And this is, you have identified the problem, that it's quite difficult. It's a solution to use public transport, but you have to create the decent, the premium, the high-level service of public transport in order to attract yourself and myself and all the other car users to leave their cars and use the public transport. And this is what we call travel demand management, i.e., if you cannot afford and you cannot have enough financial resources to increase the supply, and even the increase the supply, i.e. increase the width of the roads, increase the bridges, the tunnels, and all this stuff, and even if you do have these resources, I don't recommend that this to be the solution, especially in a place like Greater Cairo, because you will be losing other amenities like your visual intrusion in Zamalek with 26 of, with the bridge. You know, you don't want to create a city like Houston where you have bridges over bridges and tunnels under tunnels and a mess of infrastructure. So you have to go to the other side, i.e. the demand. The demand is me and you. But how do I affect you I cannot tell you and enforce you to use the public transport. I cannot do that for you.
But just
what
allow me talking about the public transport, because just even if we can help it, again, I'm sorry to say this, but even if the government is going to provide you with good means of public transportation, again, the people will misuse it. And this is something very, very important. So it will take us back to the awareness that these buses or public transportation belong to us. We have to, just like your house, you have to protect it and you have to keep it clean, untidy. So from here, I want to ask you about the conference that was held, for example, yesterday. Tell us more about how the topics that were discussed, or did you offer solutions? How was it?
Yeah, I think this is called the Cairo Climate Talks 22nd session. So it seems that every month they hold the session, and this is a program, I think, between the German Embassy and the Environment Ministry here in Egypt. And the 22nd session was dedicated to the traffic problems and the solution of the traffic, and it had experts from Egypt as well as from other places of the world. There was a German professor, and myself and engineer Ahmed, and another person from the AUC University who has been living here for a long time. And each one of us offered a package of solutions to the problem, and these were discussed in detail in an expert forum in the first day on the 15th, which was Tuesday, I think. And then on Wednesday, we had a panel forum in the German Science Center, where the audience was more audience, around 130, I think, or 150 people attended that. And definitely, you are correct that we all agreed that there is a problem. We all agreed that the problems need to be solved, and we all agreed that the solution is not by building more capacity, but the solution is still going to two things: going to the demand and going to also the land use. And in the demand, we all identified that the user behavior is part of it. We talked about microbuses quite a lot, and the behavior of microbuses and what's the solution. We talked that microbuses is required because it fills a gap. If we do not have microbuses, many people do not have mobility to go to their places. However, how you organize the microbuses in a decent form, the same thing as what you are saying, how to provide the public transport decently and how to make sure that it remains decently. And that is what we call sustainable transport system. Sustainable is you do not provide something and you leave it.
And then you leave it. There's follow-up.
If you leave it finish, it will finish in 1 or 2 days or 1 week. There is something in the transport that we are missing, not only in the transport, but in many services in Egypt, and that's what we call governance.
System.
The word in Arabic is al-hawkama. This is a very much used word in the West. Governance is you monitor and you penalize people who does not follow the level of service agreement, the LOS agreements, and the fare agreements, and the treatment. Part of it is the treatment of the passenger. Part of it is the treatment of the road. And you stop them from working and from operating. By the way, also, vandalism is vandalism. Believe it or not, when I was in Newcastle doing my PhD, and that was in 1990s or something like that, they lose, so vandalism is a very common thing. They lose on a daily basis an enormous amount of money just because of vandalism of chairs and people writing on the walls and all that stuff. But the solution is not to leave this. The solution is to monitor and penalize through cameras, through penalties, through even imprisonment, And once people feel that people are serious about enforcing the quality of service, they will stop vandalizing.
Mr. Ahmed, we were talking also about the roads. This always interests me because once it rains, for example, Egypt and Cairo rather is at a standstill. So there's roads. And you were also talking more about awareness. So could you tell us more about that and the structure of these roads? Because as we said, Dr. Khaled...
Awareness and the structure of the roads.
Yes,
let me start with the roads first. Of course, infrastructure is a big issue when you're talking about cycling. Not just for cycling lanes. I mean, first of all, we need sidewalks on normal streets. It should be also friendly for the elderly before cyclists. It should be friendly for those with disabilities before cyclists. It should be friendly for girls as well. So we coordinate a lot of our work also with initiatives that are working on harassment, like HarassMap and other initiatives as well. So these things are very important. So we're not just promoting cycling for the bicycle, but it's a symbol of many things. It's a symbol of healthier lifestyles, symbol of environmental activism and social equity as well, because in many of our events you have people from all classes cycling together. It's a very simple sport, and it's very adequate for many of us. So our work has to be very diverse, so it encompasses all of these aspects as well. So I just shifted to your next question about awareness. Our awareness goes mainly through addressing those who will make most of the change. Usually these are university students, recent graduates, and the younger generation of also the new communities who might have the luxury of free time to do some volunteer work and stuff like this. We were lucky actually yesterday in the Cairo Climate Talks and in the workshop to meet some of these entrepreneurs that are innovating. Because sometimes if the solution is not made by, by the older players in the field, then you have the younger entrepreneurs filling these gaps. And what happened...
And are they being listened to, or do they face obstacles?
No, for sure they're being... I'll tell you something. They're being listened to by the market, because the market makes them work. For example, we had several initiatives. One was Nile taxi, another one was called Tawsila, another one Biolak, you probably know it, and other initiatives that either use crowdsourcing or other innovative idea and Web2 tools and so on to start their initiatives for solutions. And they're very successful. If anybody asks, for example, this might create problems and so on, but it works.
Are they grassroots enough, though? I mean, Dr. Khaled was talking about the microbus drivers. Are these initiatives reaching the microbus drivers?
Many
of them are
what
not.
Will happen? Just let me understand. If these initiatives reached the microbus, what will happen?
If they reach the microbuses? Well, it depends what... there is a mix of solutions. It's very important to always remember that if you have a solution that solves 2% of the problem, that is beautiful, because this means that you only need 50 innovators.
It's a catalyst.
You need 50 innovators, theoretically, with each with just 2% of the problem. And that's it. We're a country of 90 million.
Time is running up. I wish to know, where can we start? From where can we start after this conference, for example? An action plan. Can we reach an action plan very quickly?
This is...
Not the action plan quickly, but the answer.
No, okay. I think, first of all, there are many studies. Some of them are in the drawers, and they are very decent studies, and they have been updated, which have, as a matter of fact, a master plan or an action plan for many aspects to solve or to relieve. And by the way, to solve is the wrong terminology, because traffic problems in any city in the world have to stay. But,
so it's rehabilitation.
But our role is to relieve the intensity of the traffic situation and the intensity of the traffic burdens. So the plans are there. But you mentioned something very interesting, the action plan. There is a difference between a plan and an action plan.
That's why I'm talking about.
The plan is something that is ink on paper.
Do all the time.
Now you want to transfer the ink on paper into action, and that is the action or the implementation plan, they call it sometimes. And this is where we are lacking in Egypt. We haven't been talking about this. I want this to be reiterated by you guys as well, that reiterated that we are not talking about plans, we are talking about action plans, implementation plans.
And, I always say we fail to plan, but you know, we don't plan to fail, we fail to plan. And this is our...
we actually maybe now the failures to a certain extent is to get the plans and implement them.
Like the laws.
The plans are there, or the laws are there. Because the solutions are there. There is any international literature on that. You can Google. Exactly. Anybody can Google the solutions. Now, who is supposed to do the implementation plan and who is supposed to implement it? In a problem like traffic, which is a very dramatic problem in Egypt, I think we need a very strong political will. I mean, the solutions are there. Okay, we can do the implementation plan very, very quickly. Implementation plan needs to know how to fund, who's going to implement, and how he's going to implement. So it's three things: money,
it's the
and
how
who, and the how. Now, but this needs a political will. It needs a political backing, and from the very top level. And I think it may be coming.
Well, I think this is an issue that we needed to discuss more, honestly. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Dr. Khaled Abbas, who's head of the Transportation National Institute, as well as an international expert in transport planning and traffic engineering, and Mr. Ahmed Dourghami, energy of environment consultant at Sidari, I'm never going to get that right, and co-founder of Cairo Cyclist Club and Green Arm. Thank you very much for being with us, and hopefully you come again, and this time it will be to talk about the implementation, how it's going.
That's it.
Thank you.
And with that, we're going to take a quick look at Dina Yunus's report from a nice tourist hotspot in Egypt, and be right back to continue the breakfast show.
Hello.